Hey guys, what is up? It is Nick the Polymath here. Today we are going to be talking about something horrible and very interesting that happened. We are going to talk about how Peanut became the MAGA squirrel. And for those who don't know, there is a influencer squirrel on the internet named Peanut, as well as Fred the raccoon, and Fred seems to be forgotten about in this story, but there was also a raccoon who is less famous but still relevant. His owner, Mike Longo, had cared for him for 7 years. Talking about the squirrel, he saw the squirrel's mother get hit by a car, and he decided to take him in, which is obviously a very, very nice thing to do. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, one of the many three-letter agencies, the DEC, we got way too many alphabet agencies over here, decided to take the time out of the day and kill the squirrel. I think that's a horrible, horrible use of resources, tax money, and just a horrible moral thing to do. The squirrel was not hurting everyone. Squirrels cannot get rabies. The raccoon might have been, you can at least argue rabies for that, but still is not, it's not a good look for the police to show up at someone's house and walk in and essentially take someone's loved possessions, and they executed them. They euthanized them. And people say, like, oh, this could never happen to, like, something that matters. But right now in California, they're fighting to make it so, and I think they actually passed a bill already, that if a person doesn't want their kid to go trans, which I have nothing against trans people, but the fact that people are ignoring that, we're pretty much testing puberty blockers on kids like a lifelong thing, is horrifying. 1/3 of FDA drugs get recalled, and the fact that we're just essentially giving thousands of kids these products that we know are going to leave them with long-term consequences, and people say, oh, they want whatever. Kids can't get tattoos. Kids can't join the army. There's plenty of things that kids cannot do because the reality is they don't understand what they're doing to themselves. And I think I have nothing against people going trans and wanting to be trans. Kids should not. Kids cannot make decisions. And I think one great example of this is the fact that Megan Fox, she has 3 sons, all 3 of them are trans. That's pretty much a statistical impossibility. The kids are very influenced. They are very easy to influence. And the oldest one, I believe, in that case was more feminine and maybe genuinely was trans. But then the other 2 followed along because they're like, oh, this is what he does, or what she, however. I'm not exactly sure how they identify themselves because that's gotten very complicated. And that leads to the next thing. Even the fact that people worry about the words, like what I just said, like, do they go by he, she, whatever, misgendering? That is not the idea of being a liberal. Liberal, the root word that liberal is based on is liberty. And liberty means that you live in a free society where you get to make your own choices. And part of that is freedom of speech. And people have this this idea of hate speech. Speech should not be illegal unless you're directly calling something or threatening something. So, say, people are saying to assassinate someone or something similar. That's a threat. Saying that you're going to do it is a threat. Misgendering someone is not a threat. And I strongly believe, someone should have the right to say the N-word, no matter what race they are, And that person who it's said to should have the right to slap them if they feel it's inappropriate. That's freedom. Freedom is not setting up all of these pathways where people can prosecute people for things they say. It's incredible to me that the party of liberty, the liberals, have gone so far into the idea of censorship is okay, we need to get rid of freedom of speech. And it's just not, it's not the idea of liberalism. Liberalism has almost lost its meaning because of how things have advanced in society. And that's similar to what happens in a very well-known book, 1984 by George Orwell. War means peace in that book as well, and we are going to war and we are helping and assisting Ukraine and Israel in war in the name of peace. And the bureaucracy is trying to make the Bureau of Truth as we speak. That's why you hear Tim Walz, Hillary Clinton, and many other liberal commentators say that we need to increase censorship. And that is horrifying when they call themselves liberals. And then they say they need to make sure there isn't freedom of speech because it's a danger. There's also, of course, the issue of gun control. And that needs to be framed in another way, where we need to work on mental health, because in many places where guns are illegal, they just switch to stabbing people. Anyways, back on to the topic of Peanut, what all of this talk has been leading up to. The liberals overreach. The government has been overreaching with the prosecution of Elon Musk, Trump, David Sachs, a bunch of other people. If they had not kept Trump in the media cycle, there's a very low chance that Trump would have won a second term. And I think that's something that is widely ignored. But of course, they saw this happen, which this is government overreach. This was a squirrel that was very loved by its owner, was well taken care of. It had a huge following online, and they just decided, oh, you can't have this, so we're going to euthanize it. That's horrifying, that the government can just say, oh, this thing you love is illegal. And it's not like a law that's based, and that's it's not based in like a codified law. These three-letter agencies have the power to just decide, the law probably that was written, or the bill that was passed, was that they were going to make a Department of Environmental Conservation, and they gave them the ability to write codes underneath that law. There's probably a committee set up that writes these things, and there's no actual process for many of these three-letter agencies as far as actual legal process. They're just allowed to write whatever they see fit. And that is not what we want. That is the whole idea of why Project 2025 says they want to dismantle so many government agencies. And this is a great example of why. Because they do things like this that they really shouldn't be able to do. And, of course, the Republican side saw this, and they jumped on it. Part of it is because, obviously, it's New York, a very democratic state, and they can now say, oh, look at what happens in democratic states. The government now has the ability to just walk in, take your pet, and kill them because they choose to, without any real... There's no true course of action that this man could have taken to try to avoid this. It's just, nope, the government gets to decide what happens. And one of the worst parts of this, other than just them killing someone's pet is the fact that now Peanuts Freedom Farm, a charity owned by, or owned, however you want to put it, by the owner of Peanut, is now in danger. They used his Instagram and his influence to make money for the charity. And now, not only did they lose Peanut, they lost Fred the raccoon. It's going to be incredibly hard for them to keep raising money for this charity that they care dearly about. This man was out here just doing genuinely good things, trying to help animals, and some random 3-letter agency of unelected bureaucrats came in and decided to kill the animal that this man loved, and decided that they could... It's just incredible. The fact that they decided to use all these resources, take this time, and it became this big show. It's understandable. The Republicans have been saying the bureaucracy and the 3-letter agencies are the problem. And then right before the election, this happened. And this is like, some might call me a conspiracy theorist. I almost wonder if this was a Republican move. Like, they do shady things like that. If maybe some Republicans had influence and they're like, kill the squirrel, we're going to make a show out of it. And I just don't understand why else this would have happened after 7 years. It's not like he just got the squirrel. The squirrel's been famous for a while. And now that's over. The man's hurt. The Republicans have more ammo. People are posting pictures of Harambe, the squirrel, and the raccoon together, saying you need to vote for Donald Trump to be able to help with this situation and redemption. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it, but it does prove one of their points that these 3-letter agencies feel like they just can do whatever and affect your life in horrible ways if they just choose to. Anyways, this obviously wasn't as long as my last video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and somehow a squirrel has become the mascot of the MAGA movement. And the sad part is most liberals agree. Most liberals, like, this is a bipartisan issue. Neither side is actually okay with this. And it just so happens it happened in New York, which is a Democratic stronghold. And that the MAGA movement is grasping onto this, saying, justice for Peanut. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. Tell me if you think there's anything I can do better. And I hope you have a good day.